Good afternoon, everyone, and happy August. Nice traditional hot, steamy August day. We're happy to see you here, and I know what I'm looking. I'm looking at mostly staff, so thank you all. I know you're working. I hope some of you got vacations, but at any rate, welcome to the Teaching and Learning Committee meeting. I'm going to announce up front, this is my last meeting as the chair for Teaching and Learning Committee. And so at the next meeting, I will gladly be moving to the side, and Commissioner Muriel Berkeley will be chairing our committee. So congratulations ahead of time. We're going to do a slight change to the agenda. We know that someone has an appointment, so we want to really help you out with that one. So we're going to start with the revision to the administrative regulation around academic eligibility for athletics, and then we'll move to the instructional readiness support, and then we'll move to the assessment strategy, and then to procurement. Just a note to those who may be watching, and if I'll come in and we'll say it again, but there are 2 written reports which are available, and they will be posted on board docs for folks who may want to read those. And those are around the 21st Century Learning Update and the end-of-year assessment progress for 2017-18. So we'll go right in with our administrative regulation.
Good afternoon. I'm Sarah Warren, the Executive Director for Whole Child Services and Support. And I'm very pleased that today we have our new Director of SEL and Wellness with us, Job Grotsky. So I'll let him introduce himself and then go on from there.
Good afternoon, Job Grotsky, Director of Social Emotional Learning and Student Wellness.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Tiffany Bird, Coordinator of Interscholastic Athletics. Okay, today we are here for our regulation revisions to JJICRA. We would like to see the full implementation after the first distribution of report cards of 2018 school year. Our rationale for this and our criteria as we will currently see it: quarterly minimum grade point average of a 2.0 or above, and then we have added an opportunity for a cumulative GPA to be considered, and that's in addition to having no more than 1 grade below passing. So what you will see there is, yes, we will look at quarterly GPAs, but we will also calculate GPAs for the past 4 quarters to see if students have strong academic progress. I do apologize, and for the final bullet, we do need to make a change. I think that was not able to be submitted prior to the presentation being sent to the board. That should read that only students who have no more than 1 failing grade for the school year of 2017-18 will then be placed on academic probation for the start of the school year. After looking at a data analysis, we have determined that we have 6 schools that will potentially be at risk of losing all fall athletic teams using that 2.0 GPA. Typically in the fall, you'll see that we will offer cross country, we will offer football, soccer at some programs, and also volleyball programs with a few unified offerings. Those 6 schools would not have any athletic offerings based on using that 2.0 criteria. We took their fall participants from last year. We looked at that GPA for the end of the school year, and they would not have enough to meet a team. We have a minimum team squad size that they would have to fulfill, and they would not be able to do that. We also have at least 8 other schools that are potentially at risk of losing at least 1 fall team, which is concerning. With the shift that we have presented today, we could potentially allow an additional 225 athletes to compete this fall, and those significant numbers could make a change for those schools that you see listed with a potential loss. Our academic probation will be a period of 20 school days. This will give an opportunity for students who have not met our academic requirements to participate. They will not be allowed to travel, but they can practice, allowing them to stay connected to the team. It's our hope that they will be inspired and motivated to improve their performance so they can get back into competitive play. In doing so, then they will be able to go through their academic advisement, their focus supports, and regain their full eligibility. So they will have a conditional eligibility of only practicing during that probation period. Accountability measures that we have in place, we've identified athletic academic advisors for all of our schools. They will provide counseling to those students in weekly meetings. They will facilitate with students to see where the deficiencies are. Are they missing assignments? Do they have an attendance issue? Are they struggling with content? In doing that, we can identify those students that are performing below the 2.0 and then make academic progress on contracts. They would have to complete with parent signatures that they're going to go through and complete this process successfully. We'll have mandatory team study halls or coach class dates for teams, weekly academic monitoring by the coaches, and then also involving peer tutoring and mentoring for those students. Our next steps, we want to make sure that this is communicated to all potential athletes, their families, athletic directors, coaches, and principals, outlining these changes. To make sure that we are tracking properly, we want to do quarterly tracking and provide that data to the schools so they can see which students are at risk and do early identification for those students. Also, improving our eligibility education during that process. We think we have an opportunity to do that and meet the needs of our students better, and then improve our communication around our summer school remediation. We'll also allow for referral forms for those students that have been identified to need academic support from teachers and school administrators. And at this time, if there are any questions, comments?
If I could just jump in real briefly, I probably should have said this at the very beginning. We wanted to bring this to the Teaching and Learning Committee today. We still plan on taking it to policy. But one of the things we really wanted to do, and we felt we really needed to think about timing of this, is communicate with principals and athletic directors, and we didn't want to do that without talking to the board or sharing this information with the board first.
Yes. So I just want to make sure that I'm understanding.
Yes.
So the students who are not succeeding academically would be allowed to practice with the team.
Yes.
At the school level, they just wouldn't be able to go compete in the games and, okay.
Yes, they would not be allowed to compete, and we would not allow them to travel with their teams when they were away.
Thank you.
I just wanted to clarify one other thing about that, which is that, so the revision of the regulation proposes a new academic probationary period, and that's where that clause comes in. It's for 20 days. So if they don't turn it around after that 20 days, then they do become ineligible.
I just wanted to say that one again. So immediately, everyone is getting this 20-day window. That's the shift that you're discussing here, correct? Okay.
Yes.
Which then adds, that's the piece that you're saying adds the additional 225 athletes that would be able to. I guess a big question I have in talking with the 6 schools and the 8 schools, some of the feedback that you've gotten from them, and any particular sports that are impacted by this?
It does vary, but football is one of the areas that we see a large impact, but you need a higher number of participants to begin, so we do see a great impact there. So we would see an increase in students returning. And then there are, unfortunately, some variables that we can't really control or determine just yet, like freshman student interest. Like they could come and they do not have an academic requirement until their first report card. So we may see where there are a high number of freshmen that those teams are stabilized by the freshman interest, but we just can't predict that just yet. We'll start tomorrow and see where we are with that.
Okay.
Yes, the athletic academic advisors.
Yes.
How are those staff members identified? Do the principals identify them, and they are in communication with your office?
Yes, they will work. Well, to answer your first question, the principal does have to approve the hire. We have outlined some guidelines that we think work best. We've indicated that we don't want it to be an athletic director serving in capacity, not a coach who's currently coaching, because they would not have the time to devote. But those individuals are sent to our office, but they are approved by the school principal. Yes, and they work with our office, but they are also assistant and working with the athletic director that's school-based. So the athletic director is not absolved from their responsibility to make eligibility determinations, but they're supported by this academic advisor in helping students, because many times athletic directors are also teaching, so they really are stretched thin and don't have the capacity to make sure they're paying close attention to that individual student.
And those thank you. Those advisors are teachers. They're teachers. Solely teachers?
We have not used solely teachers. For some small staffs, that was difficult, so we were asked to be more flexible, but they are staff employees or teachers within the building.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Personally, I just want to commend the fact that we are moving to be certain that our athletes are truly scholar athletes. So congratulations for that. And I'm certain that this will work well through the policy committee. And then I just want to Mr. Job, Mr. Grotsky, rather, I'm sorry, want to congratulate you. It's good to see you here. I remember when you started in Baltimore City Public Schools, and your father was my supervisor, so good to see you, and congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay.
His father hired me for my very first principal position.
Yeah. If you hang around long enough, you just see everybody grow up. Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. So now we'll move to the report on instructional readiness.
Good afternoon. My name is Casey Mengel. I'm the Special Assistant to the Chief Academic Officer, and I'm here today to walk everybody through our instructional readiness support. Every year, we provide this presentation. It really gives an overview of the summer learning opportunities, summer development opportunities that we're providing across the district to ensure that staff, school-based personnel are rearing and ready to go for the first day of school, welcoming students back. The way the presentation is organized is within alignment to the blueprint. So what you'll see presented here today are sessions that reflect work aligned with our student wholeness work, our literacy, and our leadership focus. Again, we always like to reflect our 3-year academic goal, knowing that we're all sort of pointing to the same and similar North Stars in mind as we do our learning over the course of the summer. Again, what we'll provide here is an overview of the learning opportunities to ensure that our schools are ready to go. But do know that our academic offices and the other offices that are reflected in the instructional readiness piece have also been participating in cross-functional efforts for just general school readiness, which I believe comes up in the operations as well as possibly policy committees. So supporting school readiness, we've offered leadership development opportunities, academic opportunities, student wholeness opportunities, and then those which we've called specific school model opportunities. So when we're thinking about PD, that's been targeted toward our 21st century schools, to the SIG 4 100% project schools, priority schools, MTSS, right? So just to sort of set the stage for how we're going to go through the presentation. So looking at leadership development, back in June, we offered our CAO and Chief of Schools Leadership Institute. Here we had 2 days where principals and 2 members of their instructional leadership teams came together to dive deep into our brand new literacy curriculum and to focus a bit during that time on academic planning with their school leadership teams as they headed into the school year. For this institute, we had on average about 378 people per day, over 115 of those being principals, resident principals, more than 60 APs, and more than 200 teacher leaders during the institute. It was really great representation of folks. Following that, and I will say, across some of these opportunities, while many of them are the academics offices, so college and career readiness, teaching and learning, special education, student wholeness who are contributing to these, some of the opportunities that I will talk about actually come out of our human capital office and the talent and organizational development folks. So the next 2 slides you'll see reflect that. So the summer leadership development, Roxanne Four, in her role as the Director for Leadership Development, offered in partnership with academics offices as well as Achievement and Accountability and some others, several sessions that principals had highlighted that they needed over the course of the summer. And so several courses were offered. I can work with Roxanne to get some sense of exactly who was in attendance in terms of role, but principals, lead teachers, APs were really the target of those. And you can see here that they really flowed across a variety of content areas and again reflected the need from principals. There was also new principal onboarding, again, run out of the Leadership Development Office in Talent and Organizational Development. There was new principal onboarding from July 7th to 12th, and then an assistant principal summer institute, which just concluded at the end of last week. And as I think all of you were in the board meeting a couple weeks ago, we had a number of AP PEPs, so welcome aboard. We also offer the Mentor Academy. In years past, we've always put this with our teacher development work that's happened over the summer, but really the mentors of new teachers truly are teacher leaders within our buildings. And so we wanted to highlight this under the leadership development work that was happening over the course of the summer. Part of this started back in July and concluded at the end of last week. Part of that work prepares those folks to welcome all of the new teachers who we will be seeing throughout the beginning of the school year. So a focus on academics. We've had our literacy academies. One is currently ongoing. The other happened in mid-July, which really focuses on our new Wit and Wisdom curriculum and bringing folks up to speed. There's also the intensive literacy site academies. Again, they happen at the end of each of those other teacher weeks. So teachers attended the literacy academies and then the intensive learning site folks, July 19th and 20th, August 9th and 10th. Principals and school leaders were also invited to attend on days of those institutes as well. In mathematics and STEM, we had our Mathematics Summer Institute right at the end of the school year, June 20th and 22nd, hosting teachers. We have an Algebra 1 session that was occurring this summer in August this week. STEM academies are occurring as well, science for diverse learners, and sessions focused on our next generation science standards and iQuest. In special education, again, happening this week, as well as at the end of last month, our Special Education Summer Institute, which really focused on developing quality IEPs and focusing on specially designed instruction and structures to support those and 504 coordinators. In the Office of College and Career Readiness, there's been a lot of support focused on master scheduler training, Perkins Funds training, the American School Counseling Association Conference, which folks went on, I believe, at the end of last month, school counseling labs, and then code.org training focused on computer science principles aligned with our CTE work. There's a student scheduling update here, as you can see. I believe this is as, I was trying to see the date there, as of July 5th. This is up to date at that point. I can certainly ask the College and Career Readiness Office to do another pool on this. They are offering ongoing, consulting labs to support scheduling across all of our schools. Just give a moment to take a look and review those. Of course.
So if I'm reading this correctly, which I may not be, but it looks like we have fewer students scheduled percentage-wise this year than we have in the past?
It does look that way with this chart, and I can certainly follow up with, just to get a new and updated one that might be more reflective of where we're sitting now, since this is at the beginning of July.
Okay. Sorry, I read it finally.
Yes, I would like to have parity, though, since we had provided a last update as of August, correct, and so I want to make sure that we actually have comparable numbers up there. So I'll make sure to send you all an update. The New Teacher Institute is another event. It's happening this month. It actually happens next week, where we invite all new teachers together in order to engage in academic learning, student wholeness learning, in order to prepare to welcome students on their first day of school and for them to really be prepared in a new position for their first 90 days. I didn't highlight, and I should, that in addition to the New Teacher Institute, on the 20th and 22nd of August, there is a focus for special educators. We also offer a Systemic PD Day this month. It's August 29th. As you know, August 28th is the first day we welcome all of our teachers back into our buildings. During that week that they come back, prior to our students' return after Labor Day, we always offer at least one systemic professional development day. So currently, academics offices, offices across the district are putting together all of their sessions, and we'll be communicating that out to schools next week for information and registration.
What will be the primary focuses or focus of the systemic PD?
For this one particularly on August 29th?
Yes, on the 29th.
Sure. So typically we use August 29th to ensure that all teachers are prepared for their first 30 days of instruction. So there will be a heavy focus with the new literacy curriculum coming into play for sure. We always offer math sessions. I mean, all of our academic offices tend to offer sessions, but it really is that focus on making sure everybody is ready to go to welcome students back for the first 30 days. And there are colleagues in the room, so if anybody else wants to add anything, I would welcome you to come up as well. Does that help?
I guess I just know that I sat in several of them when I was a teacher in the system, and I just want to make sure that they are exactly what you're saying, I guess, and nothing outside of that, and making sure that they are aligned to the blueprint that we have.
Sure, I appreciate that feedback. That is certainly the goal that we have. I mean, we really do want to make sure that people are primed and ready to receive students and receive our students with that social emotional lens and ready to prepare them with academics. That is the goal. So student wholeness. Over the course of the summer, we've been engaging our SEL intensive learning sites. We hosted a core team retreat for them on June 21st and 22nd and are looking forward again to seeing them on August 27th for a second round of that. We will also be having and supporting all of our intensive learning site schools in hosting whole school training that first week that they have their teachers back. We'll be working with them to do that on August 27th. And then, as you know, we've been hiring student wholeness specialists. So these are folks who support the student wholeness rooms as part of our blueprint work. And they will be going through orientation starting August 27th and going through a variety of experiences between then and the 29th. Our Prevention and Intervention Office has also offered their Restorative Practices Institute, which they've done for the past several summers and just concluded at the end of last week. They're also doing a Returning Positive Behaviors Intervention System, so those doing PBIS previously have come back together this week to engage in additional training. And then there's also day 1 and day 2, which will be occurring throughout the sort of second half of August with all of our Restorative Practices intensive learning sites. This slide has a lot of words, my apologies. So throughout the summer, as you know, we are always working to support schools and support parents and families with enrollment and attendance and disciplining student conduct, learning, and issues. So we've offered a number of refresher and open lab sessions around enrollment, have made sure that we've been clear with communications around our student transfer windows and supporting that process with schools and with families. We've engaged with attendance training and other attendance work groups throughout the month of August and July. We've also done a code of conduct and suspension training throughout July and then into August. I believe there's also going to be some sessions related to that at our upcoming CEO Institute. So as we usually do, we work to really engage folks. This is a really hot time of year in enrollment choice and transfer, and so we want to make sure everybody's really being supported to get students their best placement and are making sure we're tracking kids once they're getting into our buildings. Over the course of the summer, really toward the end, in August for most of these, Home and Hospital is reviewing their health and policy procedures and offering sessions on those, providing homelessness training. And then, of course, as you know, we always have the immunization support that happens from July through the month of September to ensure our students have the immunizations and records that they need. Interscholastic Athletics, which you just heard from. We're continuing our Inside Out initiative and action planning with Inside Out and with Under Armour. In fact, they're going to be doing a small session for our secondary principals as well at our upcoming CEO Institute. So we're really excited that this work is continuing here in the district. onto our sort of specific school models or initiatives. In our Office for 21st Century Learning, they're offering several professional development sessions throughout the course of the summer, most in fact actually happening in the next couple of weeks, and are focused with our 21st century schools on project-based learning, STEM technology, and 3D printing. For our priority schools, many of you know that our most recent cohort of priority schools really sunset June 30th of 2018. That was the final year for the identification of those who were identified in 16-17 and 17-18, concluded this June. MSDE will be identifying a new cohort of schools, likely this fall, for a 3-year cohort starting in the 18-19 school year. That said, we always like to make sure that we're supporting our schools in what they have been doing, and so part of our sustainability efforts for priority schools have been engaging them with the Springboard Collaborative Summer Program, which provides some intensive PD for the teachers there, as well as for the staff. And it supports students, by and large, those who are below grade level, in making growth gains over the course of the summer. For our 100% project schools, as you all know, ACE was recently added to the roster of 100% project schools. We've been working with ACE over the course of the summer to make sure that they are up and ready. Not only are they coming on board as a 100% project school, but they're also a 21st century school and just about to get their way back into the Robert Poole building. So very exciting, lots of moves for them coming back into the Hamden community and coming into a new project. In addition, those schools have their planning sessions August 13th through 15th and a retreat that's currently planned for August 20th and 21st. They are also looking to onboard new support and coordination positions to really ensure the tracking and development of the work that's happening in that project. Multi-tiered system of supports academy. So our Office of Specialized Learning, which sits in the Office of Teaching and Learning, has been really focused on MTSS this summer, engaged principals in a feedback session following the CAO and Chief of Schools Institute to understand how the CEIS grant was supporting clear systems and structures within their schools, and then leveraged that information to host the MTSS Institute in order to deepen their understanding of those systems and structures and really ground in the data of their schools in order to support the appropriate identification and supports and interventions to students.
Just for folks who don't know, explain the CEIS grant.
Sure. CEIS is a grant that we receive federally from the government. It passes through MSDE to us as part of our IDEA funds. And it is really designed to help the district target schools where we have a disproportionate number of students who are being identified as special education students, so those with IEPs, or identifying disproportionately students into a particular category of disability, and or identification for disproportionate suspensions. So those are the categories that you can be identified for CEIS. It's a direct pass-through from the federal government. We leverage it across 18 schools, which have been identified with regard to those data points, and support them in providing interventions to those students. So generally, we always like to conclude with the CAO office commitments, although recognizing that this work over the course of the summer has gone far beyond our office and has certainly, leveraged the support of our schools, leveraged the support of other offices across the district, just trying to make sure that we're always hearing the voice of our school leaders and our teachers to ensure that we're getting them the type of development that they need as we head into the school year, and that development is of high quality and is really targeting their needs based on the data that we're seeing in our district. Thank you. Certainly open for questions.
I wanted to thank you and just say you apparently have been busy.
We've been doing some things.
It's very impressive.
Thank you.
With the new teachers, how is the new teacher center involved in, are they involved in what happens at the beginning of the year?
The new teacher center, so I'd have to get a little bit more understanding of your question.
Is it?
Yeah. So we offered the New Teacher Institute at in middle of August every year. We do have a partnership with the new teacher center as well. So,
Yes, so that
Okay.
partnership with the new teacher center, what does that look like? Because I'm unfamiliar with the new teacher center.
great. So if I may, I mean, I would have to defer that conversation to the Human Capital Office and the Office of Talent Support and Talent and Organizational Development. The new teacher center has supported both, our work with ILEDs as well as our work with teacher mentors and new teachers. But I think they would be best poised to answer specific questions for you.
Okay. And the priority schools, so the sunset was June 30th. Do we
Correct.
have information on how they did? What is that process like? Do we know the outcome of them no longer being priority?
So that's
So that comes back, MSDE will then come back and say whether or not they are continuing as a priority school if we need to identify others.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a really good question, and we really are currently in process with that. So you're right, they did just sunset. There are a number of data points that we look at with the state to understand the landscape of those schools. But with regard to identification of a new cohort, the state identifies those based on a formula that they have identified, and they'll be letting us know and engaging us in that conversation as we get closer to the fall. Teresa, I don't know if you have anything you would want to add with regard to that. I know Kim has been in intimate conversations with them as well.
Yes, so the next generation, which are called the Comprehensive Support and Improvement Schools, will be identified through the new Maryland State Accountability Framework. And so right now, we're anticipating that those schools will be named between September and October. We're expecting elementary and middle schools perhaps in September, with high schools identified in October.
I just had a couple, and they're probably really, so I'm sorry if I'm getting too far in, but in terms of the wholeness rooms, have they all been set up at this point? And are we on track to really have
Yeah.
that piece in place when students return?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, we do have Sarah Warren here, so please feel free to step up, or I'm happy to respond, because we have been doing a lot of work with those over this summer.
So we are sort of mid work stream right now. We're in the process of getting all of the rooms repainted, minor repairs in a few of the rooms. We're ordering all the furnishings and the supplies that will go into the rooms, and we're also hiring the staff that will go in there. So they should all be ready come the new school year, but it's very much a work in progress right now.
Okay. And the other question, I'm sorry, I have a whole set of them.
No,
but,
please.
I was happy to hear that there were some workshops around the whole issue around enrollment and a reminder. I'm hoping that all of the folks school-based folks that are involved with enrollment took part in that one. Was that a mandatory type thing, or was that a voluntary participation? And I'm just thinking in terms of some of the things that came out of work with the enrollment task force and reactions that we received from parents and others about their first interactions with our schools, especially around the enrollment process.
That's my team too.
Okay.
So they should have all in theory attended, but I would have to go back and check with the team because I haven't seen the data on the participation, so we can provide that to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just think that's probably one of those things that shouldn't be left up to folks to decide whether they like to or not. But I do thank you. And then one other one, and I know that we're moving toward fully the restorative practices, but we still have some schools that are, and you mentioned them, the PBIS schools. Is our intent that they are going to be moving fully over, or are we going to continue to support them within that model?
That's a great question. So we have not stopped anyone from doing PBIS. We have not, ruled that out as a model. Schools will continue to implement what they feel is best for their own community, and we are continuing to support both. As we move forward, I think with our work around social emotional learning and restorative practices, we're looking at how best to integrate those different pieces into the full sort of complement of supports and strategies that a school is using. So that's our next step, is really thinking about integration.
So I have a follow-up question. I would have thought that they aren't, a school needs both, I would think. I mean, so in my limited understanding, so I think of PBIS, and I'm oversimplifying, I realize, but as being, making sure that there are consistent rules and that the students understand what the expectations are on a, class to class, day by day basis. Restorative practices being more of a, how do we come together as a community and how do we celebrate, but also if we have a problem, how do we come together around that problem?
You're right. I mean, they are not, they're different, and they can potentially live together, which is why we're aiming for integration rather than rooting out one in favor of the other. So if a school is already doing PBIS and they want to do restorative practice, then our goal is to figure out how we help them blend the two. And similarly, as we bring in the social emotional learning work, these things are not contradictory. They can all fit together. We just have to make sure that it is well integrated so that it doesn't feel to people in the building like it's lots of different programs running on.
Okay, and then I guess my last concern is, and I'm looking forward to the update around scheduling, because I know we've had years where folks have really, especially from MSDE, have really looked at us in terms of being certain that every student has a schedule for that first day of school. So I look forward for that update report.
Yes, we'll follow up on that immediately.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? If not, thank you. It has been a very busy summer. We thank you all for coordinating it, and we do thank all of the folks from the schools and central office who have taken advantage of these opportunities. And so we should see some differences in terms of how people are doing their jobs come, well, it's next week, isn't it? A couple of weeks from now. Okay. Thanks again. And we're moving to the assessment strategy, correct? Okay, thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Before I turn it over to our team to talk about assessment strategies, I would like to say that we're really excited to bring forth and present today a 3-year assessment strategy. And as long as I've been around in the district, it's usually been 1 year at a time. And I would like to give kudos to this team to thinking about this at a little bit of a larger lens, and really with two things in mind. How can we decrease testing times for our students? How our schools and our students experience testing in a different way, and to ensure that the assessments that we are providing and having our students sit through and our teachers administer, that we're really making sure that we're assessing the students up against our standards, so we know where they are and what we can do differently to support their learning needs.
Good afternoon. My name is Jessica Wilson. I'm the Director of Strategy and Compliance in the Academic Office.
Good afternoon. My name is Ashley Cook Plymouth, and I'm the Director of Literacy, Language, and Culture.
My name is Heather Nolan, Director of Knowledge Management in the Office of Achievement and Accountability.
So today we want to take this opportunity to walk through some of our assessment strategy development goals, highlight some of the strategy and changes for the upcoming school year, and talk a little bit about our 3-year strategy and what's been driving the work around assessment strategy. So the purpose of assessment is to provide information that informs teachers in their practice and gives students an idea of how they're doing throughout the year as they go through the regular kind of rhythm of a school year. We also need to make sure that we're communicating with parents and communities how we're doing, how students are doing, and what they can do to play an active role in a child's learning. And finally, we need to make sure that we're gathering data here at the district office and help both make district-wide decisions and also help support schools in the decisions they need to make based on the data that's available. All of this has to connect with the broader strategies that are going on throughout the district, including the blueprint. The blueprint has a particular focus on professional learning, the importance of leaders, as well as putting in place those systems and structures that allow for our schools to be successful. So this really connects with the assessment strategy when we look at our launching of the Navigating Academic Planning this year, and how our data becoming available so that teachers can have conversations and that leaders can have conversations in order to move the work forward at the school level.
So when we approach the work of developing what the assessment strategy is, not just for this year, but for the next 3 years, we had several goals in mind, as Chief Conley was mentioning. One, we want to make sure that the assessment strategy is meeting the needs at multiple levels of the district, not just at the student level, but also for teachers, administrators in the district office. We want to optimize the testing time for our students. We want to make sure that the data that comes from our tests is actually usable, actionable. People can understand it very clearly so that they can make the connections to how to improve instruction. And then, as mentioned earlier, we really wanted to build this 3-year strategy, recognizing that we may not be at the perfect place right now in 18-19, but we know where we need to go and know where we need to be, and we have the plan to get there. There's a clicker. Thank you. So in reviewing our assessments, we thought let's start first with what's already our assessment landscape for 17-18, and we thought through that landscape around, is the information that we're getting from our assessments timely? Again, is it applicable? Is it aligned to what the district strategies are, especially around our blueprint work? And is it essential? So are we making sure that the assessments are not redundant? Do we have 2 assessments giving us the same information? And do we need 2 assessments giving us the same information, or can we do without one? And then again, is it rooted in what our strategies are to support the strategic conversations happening at the school level? So is it essential? So how we kind of visualize then our assessment framework is we really think about this around, are we providing a well-rounded set of assessments to provide us key information at the formative and as well as the summative level? We'll cover first on the formative end. So we have a set of interims and common formative. So how we define this is they're periodic assessments. So they're assessments given throughout the year to inform and adjust instruction. Those formative assessments can also be at the classroom level. So those might be more particular and unique to a teacher. These, what we consider, are more leading indicators. So in leading is that they give us more real-time data, help us adjust our information, but ultimately they are connected to our summative. They're giving us that guide of how we're going to do by the end of the year. On the summative end, it's measuring more our readiness. So have we instructed our students based on the scope and sequencing of our curriculum, and based on and are we able to see how they performed overall in mastering the standards for that grade level? Another area around summative is an assessment used for grading. So again, at the end of a unit, at the end of a term, to again see, has the student mastered that full content within that time period. And so that we consider more of a lagging indicator, because we have to wait some time to really see the scope of how much a student has learned. So again, that's how we have organized our thinking around this assessment framework and making sure that we're aligning to our purpose and our strategies. The areas that we will cover specifically within this presentation is looking at our interim common formatives and our grading. So this is specific to what the district requirements are. And so the slide here just breaks it down by grade in the red dots of what is required. To go deeper on the formative end, so we believe that formative assessments really gives us timely information about what a student is learning that helps us progress monitor and make adjustments to our curriculum, as well as evaluate the instructional effectiveness. So how are teachers actually delivering their instruction so that we can support them through professional development, through one-on-one coaching, and through additional opportunities of support. So within our formative assessment strategy, we believe that we need to know where we are now. So that's knowing who our students are. We need to know where we are going, so knowing about what the content is that we have to master, and then we need to know how to close that gap. And so that assessment information gives us really critical data to figure out what within our pedagogy, what within our instruction we need to change. And so two types of assessments within the formative end are ones that measure student learning growth and ones that measure mastery. Student learning growth, again, this is an assessment that measures student progress across 2 or more points in time. So at the beginning of the year, I'm assessed. At the end of the year, I'm assessed again within that same assessment platform, and I'm actually able to measure how much growth I've attained within that year. It helps us identify and target specific areas of improvement for a student. The area of mastery, or the assessment of mastery, is really focused on, within this assessment, given at this time period, has that student mastered the standards that were assessed? And so they're very distinct time periods that look at, based on whether, how much a teacher has delivered, or what the teacher has delivered in terms of content. Has the student mastered what that content area is? And it's really focused on, again, this content level mastery that we want to see a student demonstrate by the end of the course. So it's more of a, masteries focus, distinct focus than a student learning growth is, how much have I grown from the beginning to the end of the year, for example.
So now we're going to talk a little bit about some specific assessments that are adjusting or changing or being added this year. iReady is an example of a student learning growth assessment, and it also provides diagnostic information to the district. And so the school year that just ended, we required students to take it at the beginning of the year and at the end of the year. And in the upcoming school year, we're transitioning to just a BOY, beginning of year administration, which will provide diagnostic information for all of our students. The caveat to that will be that our MTSS pilot sites will be taking all 3 windows, just like they did this past year, because that's part of their grant and their program. Over 3 years, we're looking at adjusting and re-examining what tools we're using for this diagnostic and student growth purpose. So this year, again, we're just going to have window 1 be required, and schools can make decisions about what students should be taking window 2 and window 3 based on need for progress monitoring. In the next school year, in school year 19-20, all of the windows will be optional, and it'll be up to schools to decide whether or not this is a tool that they find valuable, with the exception of, again, those MTSS sites. And based on the feedback from schools and how that process goes, we're then going to re-examine whether or not iReady is something that we want to continue in the district, it's the right thing, or if there's a different direction that we should be going based on, again, the school's decisions about what they're going to use in SY 19-20. And then in school year 2021, we would implement then whatever the outcome of that review would be. So now we want to focus a little bit on the interim assessments. This year we put interim assessments for math and place in grades 1 through 11, and we have an opportunity now to do the same thing in ELA, and I'm going to let Ashley talk a little bit about that.
Right, so with the adoption of the new standards aligned comprehensive ELA curriculum, brought the opportunity for additional embedded assessments within the curriculum, but like Jess said, an opportunity for us to potentially adopt an interim assessment aligned to our curriculum as well. So this slide pretty much shows the trajectory around the 3 types of assessments that pertain to the K-8 ELA curriculum trajectory. So within Wit and Wisdom, our K-8 ELA curriculum, there are multiple common formative assessments that are already embedded, 2 of which that are highlighted here are our new read assessments and our end of module tasks. These assessments, like I said, are built within the curriculum Our new read assessments are selected response park-like type items that happen frequently within a module. For example, the second grade Module 1 might have 2 to 3 new read assessments within the module, where a third grade one for Module 1 might have 2. So the frequency depends on grade level, the frequency depends on the module and the standards addressed and assessed within a given module. The end of module tasks, however, are given 4 times a year because they correlate to each module. And these tasks are all written tasks, and they assess not only the reading language arts standards, but as well as writing standards. And they are assessed K to 8, both for the end of modules and the new read assessments. Both of these formative assessments are mastery assessments. So within a given module, within a given set of new reads, a teacher can see how his or her students are mastering the standards that are taught within that module. With the adoption of the curriculum, we have the opportunity to explore interim assessments that are aligned to our Wit and Wisdom curriculum. These assessments, again, would be aligned to the standards assessed in Wit and Wisdom or taught within Wit and Wisdom. This would also be another opportunity for ELA standards mastery. That would happen more frequently throughout the year. Our proposal is at minimum 4 times throughout the year. And again, this would be a good benchmark at a district level and at a network level for us to see how our students are mastering a set of standards until we lead to our summative assessment, which is the PARC at the end of the year. So this just kind of illustrates the trajectory of how we go from classroom-based common formatives to more quarterly interim assessments to our endpoint being PARC, which is our summative. So in order to launch this opportunity, we have outlined an implementation timeline around the ELA formative assessment track. So what you'll see here for fall 2018 with the implementation of the curriculum, that teachers will have the opportunity to administer and assess using the new read assessments and the end of modules. Since they are aligned to the curriculum, they are part of the scope and sequence and the pacing within the curriculum. This does not require additional days out of instruction. It's embedded within the teacher's scope already. We have launched an ELA interim assessment RFP to see what is out there in terms of opportunities for an ELA interim platform and assessment. And as the RFP is launched, we will engage in engagement series, getting feedback from teachers, stakeholders, similar to what we did with the curriculum. In addition to fall 2018 during this school year, we will begin our revised curriculum with our 9-12 with the potential of looking to see what lays in store for potential adoption for 9-12 ELA curriculum based off engagement feedback sessions from our stakeholders as well. So as the RFP is launched for the formative assessment, we are hoping that by second semester we can adopt and administer 3 of the interim assessments based off the findings and what results come out of our RFP. And those interim assessments will be administered to our elementary and middle school students. In addition, during that time, we would potentially launch the curriculum and interim assessment RFP for our 9-12, and again, continue that feedback and engagement series, leading into school year 19-20, where we would implement the ELA interim assessments K-12. So we would continue from a second semester with our K-8, with, again, the hope that by the end of next school year, we would have potentially adopted a new 9-12 ELA curriculum and interim assessment. That way, when we're looking at 19-20, we have fully aligned curricula as well as with their assessments.
So as we've gone through this process and we've had the opportunity to adopt interims for math and now working on the adoption for the ELA as well, we took this time to reflect on what's happening in the other subjects and other areas that aren't even part of the 4 core. And so those generally have taken traditional middle of year, midterms, end of year final exams. And so what we're proposing to do is work with teachers, principals, and stakeholders over the course of this year to review what those look like for those other subjects and transition them to interims as well, with the goal being that they would have kind of a single, the length and the type of assessment would fit within the normal routines of a school on a quarterly basis that wouldn't require half days and final exam and midterm scheduling, and would also give teachers additional checkpoints throughout the year as they're going through their work, similar to what our math and English language arts teachers would have. We're hoping that we'll have that completed and ready to go for high school for the start of next school year, at which point we'll start the same review for the middle school subjects as well, with the goal of having them in place for school year 2021. Additional adjustments that we're making this year as part of the assessment strategy is we had for the school day SAT for the first time this year. That gives us the type of information that's required in order to determine whether or not students are meeting the college and career readiness standards, which goes back to that first question. One of the first questions that Heather brought up is, are we being duplicative? Do we really need two tests telling us the same thing? So we reviewed that, and we've determined that the SAT day is something we're going to continue with, and since that will be there, we are no longer going to require Park ELA 11 and Algebra 2, which was basically giving us the same information. Another thing that's kind of a benefit from this is that we actually get the SAT data earlier, which allows us to plan better for those students.
So overall, in terms of changes specific to 18-19, when we look at the full scope of assessments, with our math interims, as we went through year one implementation in school year 17-18, there will be no change for 18-19, and as a result, there's no change in the administration time. With the proposed, with our ELA interims, our proposal is that we're going to launch an RFP and adopt and administer up to 3 assessments in the elementary and middle grades. So that would result in an increase in the administration time for those grades, since in the past we did not have an ELA interim in place. With iReady, we are recommending the reduction in the required administrations of window 3 and only requiring just window 1. This results in a decrease in the administration time overall. Amplify Reading 3D, that's for our K2 grades. That will be no change in administration, so we will administer beginning, middle, and end of year in K2 in that assessment, and there will be no change in that administration time. AccuPlacer, that is specific to our high schools and just for our 12th grade students that are required to take AccuPlacer, and that will be a no change in terms of 18-19 administration as well as the administration time. As just finished mentioning, we are doing a couple of high school adjustments, and that will be in the removal of Park ELA 11 and Algebra 2 and the use of SAT as college readiness indicator. So we will see a decrease in the administration time for our high school students. And then we wanted to add here this mention from Ashley around our curriculum embedded writing, as that is rooted and connected with our blueprint work. So we will be utilizing the module task from our K-8 Wit and Wisdom curriculum and continue with our LDC's writing assessment for our grades 9 through 12. This we see as no change in the administration time, as Ashley mentioned, is this is already embedded within the curriculum delivery. And that concludes our recommendations and 3-year proposal. Are there any questions?
I appreciate the work that you all have done. I have a question about the other subject areas. There are more than 4 core in Maryland. How do those assessments look currently for the other content areas?
So they are different depending on what subject you're talking about. Some of them look similar. Do they have midterms and final exams? Some of them are projects, and so we're going to take a close look at what that should look like for all of the different types of subjects. So I would imagine that, as an example, an art class would have a very different look and feel for an assessment than maybe like a sociology class that was taken as an elective.
Sure. But are we using any of that data to inform any of these two particular subject areas that we're focusing on, primarily ELA, reading, and math? Is there a way that we could potentially align some assessment data from those other content areas to help inform us in any way?
I'm not sure I understand the question. Are you asking, should those other content areas be looking at that data, or that we're using that data to support?
Yes, using that data to support.
So one of the things that we'll benefit from as we go through this process of adjusting to an interim for all of the subjects that we're looking at offering is that we'll have a centralized way of collecting information. Right now, that information is largely available at the school level, and so it varies based on school as to how that information is used.
I'm sorry, I just know that we have these other content areas, and I'm not hearing anything about how we're assessing them also. So I would just be curious to see that development within this 3-year plan as to how the other content areas are also being looked at in their assessment and what's happening in those content areas.
And I'm just going to try paraphrase what I heard, or think what I heard you say is you're going to be reviewing those other areas that currently are doing things like the final exam kind of format to look to make them all interim, so then we can collect all of that data quarterly and have a pretty comprehensive view of what's happening K through 12.
Correct. Plus,
Okay.
there's also additional state testing that we
Right.
didn't talk about in some of the other areas,
Right.
such as science and social studies, that we do have that data available and we do look at the district
Okay.
level already. There just isn't any change associated with that, so we didn't highlight that in this presentation.
And I would also encourage, I know I did it, but others, there's another attachment with your report that has sort of the projected seat times, which was fascinating to look at, but it really has all of the assessments and things listed, and you can see some of the changes that are recorded that way. Okay. Any other? Okay, I look forward to just hearing as you go forward, especially in terms of the RFP around what the interims might look like and as you're developing them. But thank you again for tremendous work. And Ms. Cook, good to see you.
You too.
Missing you from where you used to be, but good to see you here, and congratulations to you
Thank
too.
you.
Okay.
Where did she? Where did she?
She was my principal at Mount Washington. Oh, I'm sorry. Commissioner Berkeley wanted to know why I was saying missing you, but Miss Cook Plymouth, let me say it correctly, was the former principal at Mount Washington Elementary, which is dear to me because my grandchildren attend that school. That's why. Sorry. We're going to move to procurement. And let me see.
Joe Vogel, the procurement manager, sitting in for Jeff Parker tonight.
Here I go. I'm going to try and do this one. We have read, so I think we have there 5, am I correct, in our section here? So the first item is the duty centers. Are there any questions from either of the commissioners around that procurement item?
For me.
Okay. So we're okay with that. Hold on. The Ingenuity Project.
I'm okay with that.
We are fine. We did ask, so we will just say publicly that we were very encouraged by the statement about looking at the expansion of Ingenuity, and very much wanted to be certain that we are using our mapping and our equity lens so that it's sort of, if you could address that a little, I think, because our concern is that we look at some other areas of the city that perhaps
So I'll
could
just
benefit.
provide Laura with a little bit of context. Prior to the start of the Teaching and Learning Committee, they talked to me about, are we looking at location when we are potentially, identifying 1 to 2 more schools for Ingenuity?
Great, thank you. So as we stated in here, and we've actually started talking to schools about, location is one of the primary sort of focuses for us. We are looking to serve students in underserved areas of the city. We want to make sure every kid, regardless of where they live, has opportunities that are rigorous, like Ingenuity. So that is primarily our concern in doing this expansion. So we're really excited about it too.
Where they end up, but that's great opportunity and expanding our portfolio. My mic back on. The American Reading Company and Book Source, and this was to additional dollars needed for more materials for the new adoption. Were there any questions around that one?
No.
Okay.
And we knew this was coming, too.
Yes,
as we
yes.
heard that.
Yeah, we had heard about that. All righty. The Baltimore City Health Department. This was providing the services of the nurses. Questions?
Might ask one. Do we feel that, are we covering every school now with nurses or no?
Just press the button, yeah.
Did press it once, but every school has a health suite or a school-based health center. They are staffed by a nurse or by a certified nursing assistant supervised by a nurse. There is no school in the system that does not have a nursing presence. Thank you. That's what I thought.
Good to hear. It's great. And the last one is the College Board. Any questions? That's all right.
Oh, man.
Have to do it. It's good.
Well, that was an easy set for us. Okay, thank you. Again, I'm going to remind folks that there are 2 written updates. One is 21st Century Learning Update, and the second is the end-of-year assessment progress for 2017-18. They are posted, so folks who would like to read them, we are not having presentations for discussion. We did not have anyone sign up for public comment, so I'm going to open. Is there anyone here who wished to make comment? Well, it must be because it's August and everyone wants to get home, but that will conclude our meeting. We don't have other business. Our next meeting is on September the 4th, 2018, 3:30. We have decided to do the meetings in the afternoon to be available for folks who would like to come for public comment, and we have now posted the process for that. So if others would like to come, we encourage you to please join us. And Commissioner Berkeley, that will be your first meeting, so we look forward to seeing you on that date. I just saw someone come in. Did you come to join the meeting? Did you wish to say anything, to speak to the committee?
For the PEP agenda.
Oh, you're here for the special meeting, which is after this. We thought you were joining our party, but that's okay. That's great news. So if there is no other meeting, we will now stand adjourned. Thank you. The special session will start at 5:30 in this room. Thank you.